All right, welcome everybody. Today we are talking to Jody Friedman. Of course, you know him as a music supervisor and a sync agent, as well as a music library owner. But today, we're actually going to dive into some deep questions on how you as a musician can really connect with supervisors, sync agents, and various sync experts who are responsible for licensing your songs to TV, film, commercials, video games, trailers, and more. So, Jody, thank you for coming and having this conversation. I know that you were just at a conference. If someone were to see you walking down the hallway at an event like this, and they recognize you, and they're like, oh my gosh, there's Jody Friedman, he's a supervisor, I gotta go and I gotta talk to him. How could someone approach you in a way that it would be memorable and you would actually take the time to listen to their songs?
You know, people, obviously it happens naturally. They'll recognize me from either being online or doing their research and knowing that I'm a supervisor. I'm very polite. I say hi to anyone who wants to come talk to me. I'll shake their hand. I'll talk to them. Not everyone leaves an impression though. I try to listen to what I get, but I can sometimes tell when somebody's talking to me by the way they're talking, the way they're presenting themselves. Sometimes I can. I still test myself. I'll listen later like, yeah, that's what I thought, and then discard it. Or sometimes someone is very impressive to speak with. I hope their music can match the impression that they left on me as an individual. Then I listen to their music and they fall short. So it can go both ways. How someone can make an impression on me personally, where I'm thinking about them after the fact, is actually paying attention to what's going on with me. I know that sounds selfish and self-serving, but that's just human nature. And I think when you're approaching somebody as a professional, and if you, let's say you came up to me and I didn't know who you were, and like, hey, Jody, you know, my name's Michael Elsner, and you know, I was thinking about approaching you, Jody, for representation, but I've noticed that you've been doing a lot of coaching online. Are you still representing people? That would be like, wow. I very rarely sign now because of that. I'm focused a lot on serving the musicians through my coaching company. I have a lot of talent already on hand. When I sign something, it's like my answer would be, it's going to be a big catalog, like a big label or a big publishing company that has a big catalog. So no, it'd be a waste of time for you to send me your music, for me to rep you. Seeing that you paid attention to that, that would leave an impression on me.
Going hand in hand with that answer, what you're also saying is that you're looking for people who actually understand the minutia of the sync industry. You know, they always look at music supervisors as the saving grace. If they can get their songs to a music supervisor, then their fate will be sealed and they will have a successful career licensing their songs. There's a lot more to it, as you said. Your job on that show was clearance. And I don't necessarily think that a lot of musicians understand what that means.
Well, what is music clearance? Music clearance is literally securing the rights to the songs and the recordings. That's it, plain and simple. There's a lot involved in that. You know, one song can have 10 writers, one recording can have 3 labels co-owning it, but that's what it is. It's securing the rights using the terms that are given to me, that how it's being used in the show. I would be given the song, I'd be given the duration, the terms they need to secure, the territory, the scene description. I'd put together the quote request and I'd send it out. I'd get the quotes. I'd have a little tracker. I keep track of everything in. And then when it comes time to confirm the use, I'd confirm it. And that's where that job stops, unless there's a license to be done. If there's a license to be done and I'm handling the license on that side, which isn't always what clearance does, then I'm also drafting the license. But usually if you're doing music clearance, it's the quote request, the confirmation, done.
And sometimes music supervisors do everything. And other times, depending on their workload, they bring in team members to do exactly that, correct?
That's right. Yeah. So in this instance, we mentioned Griselda. I was part of a greater team working on music clearance on Griselda.
So from what I'm hearing, when it comes to someone really standing out when they're connecting with music supervisors, they stand out because they understand the greater roles that are played in the licensing space, as opposed to just beelining it straight to the music supervisor because that's a magical term that's been added to their name.
Yeah, you know, it's like music supervisors, we've done it to ourselves. You know, we've done a lot of panels. We've talked about how much we love working with independent music and independent artists. If your music is good enough, the music supervisors will find you. It's the reality of it. You don't need to go to music supervisors if your music is good enough. If your records are good enough, you should have, if your records are good enough, you're going to have a record label or a library or a sync agent, right? So the rest will take care of itself. And I think people really spend so much time focused on the networking and the pitching that they forget about the music and the records. And they don't put enough time into that. Those that are crushing it, that are killing it, that are getting a lot of syncs, they're focusing on the music and the records, and they're getting a lot of syncs that way, whether it's through their representation or directly. If you have a great record and you know the business, and we have a conversation and you're like, yo, yeah, I've got these records, I just landed a placement in this, and this. I've got this one song, it's about overcoming the odds. Since you mentioned you needed it, it's one stop, I got stems available. That's it. Oh, great. Yeah, well, I'll check it out. You told me that you have that. You told me it's one stop. You told me you have stems. You've told me you have placements before. So I know you've done this a few times. You've been through the ringer. You know what's entailed in that. Yeah, I'm going to listen. Plain and simple. And I might license it from you. I might.
You're in that circle where all of your colleagues are music supervisors and sync agents and library reps. That's your business. In your conversations with them, what do you see being the biggest challenge that they have when working directly with independent musicians?
The biggest challenge would be the position that they get put in if they license from those individuals. So by just in that example I gave, even by me saying I'm going to license from an artist, or any of us, any music supervisor saying we're going to license directly from an independent musician, we're taking a risk because we're trusting that this independent musician whom we just met really understands copyright, really owns the rights to their songs, doesn't have any samples in it. If they tell us they don't, we're trusting their word that they don't. Let's say someone says there's no samples. Maybe they think there's no samples. We say, okay, great, here's a license. We do the license. And it turns out there's a sample they got from some royalty-free site. And they didn't even think about it as a sample, but it is a sample. And someone waves a flag and says, that's my beat. If I licensed that from you and you were the one who had that sample, Netflix is reaching out to me on a project that I supervise saying, Jody, we're getting someone who called in saying that this beat is theirs in this song that aired on our show. So I'm immediately put in a negative light with my client. Doesn't matter if I did nothing wrong. I'm immediately put in this negative light with my client. So that alone is risk enough for me to never do that. And for a lot of us to not do that, to work with trusted sources we've worked with for years, to work with sync agents and libraries and labels and publishers that we've worked with again and again and again. To take that even further, that's an omission that artist made. They didn't know there was a sample. They omitted that from the conversations that we had, from the deal. So there's something called E&O insurance. Independent artists usually don't have E&O insurance. I've never come across an indie artist that has their own songs and that's it, and they've got E&O insurance. It's usually big agencies or libraries that will have E&O insurance. And what that is let's say there was an omission. Let's say that producer who created that beat, they sued Netflix. And let's say there's a lawsuit at that point, in which case I'm coming to court, you're coming to court, we're all going to court, right? Or settling or whatever it is. E&O insurance will insure the production and cover any loss incurred for the production. That's why libraries have it, because omissions happen. There was something that happened, and it was several years back. It wasn't an omission. Somebody wanted to clear an Eminem song. Do you remember this story, Mike?
I do know this story. Yes, I do remember the story. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Someone wanted to clear this Eminem song, and Eminem's people said, no, you can't have it for this commercial. And I think it was in Australia or New Zealand or something. So this library had one of their composers create a song in the style of Eminem. It sounded exactly like 8 Mile. It sounded exactly like it. And it even was called Eminem Style Song. So they shot themselves in the foot twice. They licensed that for the commercial. Eminem's team saw it and claimed infringement. They pursued copyright infringement. That's infringement. That's our song. That's our composition. We own the rights to that song. And I believe that they won. So chances are that library has E&O insurance because the library trusted that it was original from the composer producer who created it. So E&O insurance will then insure that library and help them recuperate.
It's just like having car insurance or home insurance.
Yeah, exactly. So it's incredibly important that we work with trusted individuals for that reason. And that's why I think that pursuing music supervisors, constantly pitching your music to supervisors anyway, is a waste of time. Meeting music supervisors is a whole different thing. Having conversations like we spoke about earlier, it's great. Build that relationship with them. You don't need to pitch them your music. If it's good enough, they will find it. If they want it, they will ask you for it.
It's amazing how much things have changed in the last 15 years, And it's funny because we do see, people still talking about pitching your songs to supervisors, and here's a list of music supervisors that you can get online, and people are always looking for that. I know that there's a lot of frustration among the supervisors who end up on those lists. One thing that a lot of people don't realize is those emails on those lists are oftentimes their old emails because they've been blown up by so many independent artists that they have to start fresh. But it's amazing how 15 years ago, I'd say 15 years ago, that was definitely the path.
Yeah, it was much smaller. I mean, supervisors needed music. I remember one of the libraries was Opus One Music Library, and it was lousy. The quality wasn't great, but they were the library. And since then, the quality of libraries and the systems that are in place have improved so much. But supervisors were scrambling. Music supervision wasn't even a defined career path, I think, until I didn't see it really start getting defined until maybe 2008, 2009. And then there were some courses that started coming out at UCLA 2012. It's relatively new. What's great is now there's courses in colleges now. If you want to be a music supervisor, there is a career path for that.
And there's so much content now that's being created that it actually warrants that being a career. Whereas 2014, I think there were 140 some odd shows in production back in 2014, and you look 10 years later, we're at over 2,000. It's way over 2,000. You remember we looked up that stat on IMDb, and if you're watching this and you have an IMDb Pro account, go into IMDb and look up shows in development. You'll be blown away by how many projects are in development right now. And it's amazing just having tracked it over the years, over the last 10 years, how it has grown so much. I mean, it literally is exponential in the speed of growth. Now, at this point, you have every independent musician and every publisher and every record label looking at licensing as a viable source of income. How do you see that affecting the relationships when it comes to the supervisors and libraries with independent musicians versus those supervisors and libraries with record labels and major publishers?
Well, I think the balancing both relationships are important. The major labels and the publishers, for the project I'm on right now, it's mostly majors. So, you need to have those relationships and keep them positive. But there are still, it used to be that there were so many artists that wouldn't even license. There was a time, I think there were several that they'll never license. That was the thing. Beastie Boys, they'll never license. And they saw that growth. And I think that their labels and their publishers probably started speaking with them about, look, you could get a $500,000 placement from something you support and believe in. You might want to consider it. I don't know how they presented it to them, but you might want to consider it, right? And they came around. Now you see ads. Look up Led Zeppelin in commercials. You'll see a lot more Led Zeppelin songs since it started to change for them around 2014, I think, with The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, that opening sequence that Trent Reznor did. And then they were in Shrek, and then they were Shrek 2, I think it was. And since then, they've had a lot more syncs. And they make a lot of money from it, They're selective. They're able to be selective at that point. Because for them, it's also not, I don't think it's all about the money for artists at that level. So they are very selective. On the project I'm on now, one of your favorite bands, they're taking their time with their decision. They don't care. They're not in a hurry. For that reason, we have to have those relationships with the independent musicians and the independent catalogs, because I can't keep waiting. Right? I need to replace that song. I need to get this project wrapped up. So yeah, it's extremely important.
Final question for you, and that is for an independent musician who's watching this interview right now, and they're just getting started, they're just learning about licensing, they've become aware of what is, the potential that they have for their music with licensing as an outlet. What would you say is the number one next step that they must take if they're actually going to venture down this road and have success placing their songs in TV shows?
I can only tell you to do what I did, and that's learn the business. Learn the business. inside and out. Learn the business. Understand the business. Go to school. You got to go to school. You got to learn the business, right? That's the first thing we're taught as kids. We go to school. You get educated before you're put into the marketplace. Before you can create whatever it is you're creating, whether you're a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer, whatever it is that you're doing, you have to learn how it all works. So learning about the business, I think, is crucial before you then focus on, okay, I learned the business, I learned the market. Now let me work on my music and really leveling that up so I can plug it in, because I'm building my network. I've learned the business. Now I need to build up my music and my catalog.
When you say business, just for clarity, what specific aspect of the business?
Man, it's all of it. You got to understand what a label does and what a publisher does. You've got to understand contracts. You've got to understand metadata. If you didn't know what music clearance is, that's part of the business. You've got to understand, what is a clearance house? What do they do? What do music supervisors really do? What is their day-to-day like? What do music editors do? What do sound designers do? How is a film made? Right? Asking these big questions. I'm not just talking about the music business. It's about the sync licensing business, which is the amalgamation of the music business and the entertainment business and how it all blends together. The easiest entry point is TV. Easiest entry point to start is TV. So learn about TV productions and what goes into making a TV production. What does that mean? If you were going to make a TV production right now, how would you do it? Ask yourself that question. And then, of course, with that, you've got to learn about the music business. There's plenty of books you can get. In addition to our free guide, you can get plenty of books. There's a lot to it, so it can feel overwhelming. And this kind of goes back to earlier, like I said, you don't have to pitch to every music supervisor. As a sync agent, I need 10 clients. 10 clients can run my business. As a creator, I would imagine you need to find the right partner to represent your music when your music is ready. But if it's not ready yet, then you've got some work to do. You've got some steps to take to get there. And that's okay.
It's awesome, man. That is a wealth of knowledge and wisdom that I hope if you're watching this, you can take that and actually implement it, and not just watch the video, but actually take that knowledge that Jody's sharing with you and start implementing it. Look at your own business, look at your own songs, look at the path that you're on, and look at the path of where you actually want to end up. Where do you want to end up? Take what Jody shared and analyze it and see how you can implement it and add it to your own career and your own journey. Awesome, Jody. Thank you very much. We'll see everyone else a little later.
Bye, guys.
If you would like to join a thriving community of elite sync professionals dedicated to ensuring each other's success in sync licensing, then Elite Music Coaching invites you to join Sync Titan.
That's right. And inside this community, you're going to have opportunities to connect directly with sync professionals like music supervisors, sync agents, and music library reps in our monthly virtual meetup and networking events. You're going to be able to get coaching directly from Jody and myself. We have listening sessions, and we also have meetups where you can connect with other collaborators all throughout the world.
Also, we post opportunities for you to submit your music to films, TV shows, trailers, commercials, video games, podcasts, web series, and more. As a Sync Titan member, you're also eligible to receive a Sync Titan award.
So make sure to click the link below or above or to the side or wherever it is on this channel so that you can learn more about Sync Titan and how you can become a valued member of this community.